Good morning from California, friends. The circumcision crisis has lasted over 100 years in the United States, North America, Canada. Briefly, they experimented on baby boys in England, Australia, New Zealand. All those other English-speaking nations have abandoned this cruel surgery. But it persists in the United States at an unacceptable level. Why? Because the circumcision industry promotes it with propaganda, with ignorance, by manipulating public opinion through the media, by not sharing accurate information with parents, and by giving them false information about the proper care of their normal, intact sons. We all know what forced retraction is. American physicians continue to advise parents, even parents of newborn babies, to rip open their penises and scrub it out. Forced retraction alone is responsible for the mass circumcision of American boys and men. Because in the early 20th century, people didn't just wake up one morning and decide to start circumcising their newborn babies, their newborn boys. There had to be a transition. My own father, at the age of 7, according to my mother, was forcefully retracted and had subsequent problems that led to his recommended circumcision. The story of my father was repeated millions and millions of times in the early 20th century. Boys were forcefully retracted. The subsequent infections were treated with circumcision. And gradually doctors began saying, look, rather than circumcising all these 1, 2, 7, 8, 9-year-old boys, 12-year-old boys, let's just circumcise them when they're babies, because it's going to have to be done anyway. What the circumcisers conveniently ignore, and I say ignore because they know, they're not that dumb to understand that no one else in the world does this to their babies in the hospital. What they conveniently ignore is that the majority of the world's men are born normal, stay normal, live normal lives, and are never troubled whatsoever with their normal bodies, any more than baby girls and women are. The body is born perfect. Recently, an Australian circumcision crusader, long known for his preposterous theories about circumcision, posted a video on a well-known American medical school's website, clinic and website. I'm not going to name those in this video because they don't merit having their names said, spoken, or spread. And in fact, except for a few blips on the media radar, no one picked up the bizarre story that circumcision is just another childhood vaccination. That's the level of insane discourse we have come to. The American circumcision crusaders cannot even find American doctors who will stand behind it anymore. So they go to some quack overseas in Australia to spread their propaganda and to use him and his shameless advocacy as a tool to promote their own circumcision agenda, which, as you know, they've spread to Africa. And their long-term goal, be assured, is not to back off of circumcision, but it's to continue it with any justification they can think of. It changes every 10 years, and we'll have another theory coming out in a few years, I'm sure, when their crackpot HIV theory is totally shamed and discredited, as it already has been. But they're very slow to get the message, aren't they? Why is it that every time American doctors and American media promote circumcision, they never give European medical societies any mention? They don't know such societies exist. The Royal Dutch Medical Association has condemned circumcision. The Germans, the British, the Danish, the Australian, the Canadians. How is it that American men suffer a curse of the penis that men nowhere else in the world suffer? We clearly, in America and Canada, are under attack by the circumcision industry. They will use any argument to continue it. Any argument. Perhaps among the craziest is this idea that the son should match the father. I'm as outraged as you are by their irrational, bizarre, cruel logic, because they never applied that son should match the father argument back in the day when 99% of fathers were intact. All of their propaganda has one purpose: to terrify, frighten, and manipulate American parents into circumcising their sons, because they know that when you circumcise a baby, for the most part, you are ensuring that the grown man he becomes will circumcise his own son, because that's the way the circumcision virus works. The devastation, the destruction is so vast that it's easier for a man to pass it on to his son than to confront and see what was done to him. Circumcision is the total destruction of the human penis. Don't tell me, oh, well, there's still a pole left there, and it works. Circumcision destroys the human penis. It removes the essential, crucial, core, external structure of the human penis. The part that is left is never supposed to be an external part. The glans, penis, the head of the penis. That is an internal part of the human body, just as it is on a woman. And the consequences of this mass experiment on American men are unknown. We don't know the consequences. But I do know one thing: they are vast, unmeasured, and real. Intactivists will be pressing the circumcisers from every angle: the legal, the medical, the social, the cultural, the parental, human rights. We are on the winning side of history. We won't back down. The circumcisers are in retreat. When we held our successful Genital Integrity Awareness Week protest in Washington, D.C. last week, in the back of my mind, I wondered what the circumcisers would have in store for American parents after the completion of our protests. The reason that the circumcisers have been so successful is because they have always known that their assault on American men is a war. It relies on psychological warfare to succeed, and they've been very good at it. It's not a war on a traditional battleground. Our bodies are the battleground, ladies and gentlemen. Our bodies. And they have been very successful in the past. With the advent of social media and the internet, they're now in full retreat. So after GIAW, I knew they would, or I suspected, let's put it that way, I suspected that they would come out with some bit of garbage to counterattack our successful onslaught against their cruelty and their policies. That's why they brought out this bit of junk science from Australia, from this Australian fool. Some people think, well, you've got to get in there and counter every study that he mentions, and you've got to show this study and that study. What a bunch of baloney. I don't need a study to tell me that when you cut off the external structure of the human genitals, you're doing profound and devastating harm. Only a fool would need a study to prove that. That's the situation they've put us in. They've put intactivists on the defensive for too long. So I tell you, circumcision crusaders, your day is done. You had your short-lived victory over the American people. You're on the run and in retreat. American parents are decent people. When they find out the truth about what you're doing to their sons, they reject circumcision across the board. That's why you've done your best to keep them in the dark. Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning, but this will not be a battle that we win overnight, because, as Leonard Glick said, they have marked it in our flesh. And millions upon millions of men carry the wound in their flesh and feel the need to defend it. And they reject any education, information that enlightens them, because that's a horror that they then have to live with. We're in a transitional phase in American history now. More and more parents are keeping their sons intact. Baby girls are growing up with baby brothers who are intact. And the next generations following us will be the intact generations. The return to normal in the United States of America. Thank you for everything you're doing. I will also post this to the video protest that Jonathan Friedman has organized, so that the clinic in question has the opportunity to see this video, although from what I understand they're deleting everything that objects to their advocacy of circumcision. That's to be expected. These people won't go down easily, but they're going down and they know it. They can't even find an American doctor to back them up any longer. Not even the fools on the AAP, Circumcision Task Force, will defend this loony Australian crusader. So thank you again for your work. I will be in Santa Cruz, California, Surf City Circumcision protest. I believe that's the first weekend of June, with Brian Harity, Danielle Cruzman, Frank McGinnis, and Anya Schenkel. If you can make it, we'd love to see you there. We have more Bloodstained Men protests coming up, and you can see all those events on the Facebook page. So once again, never doubt that we're on the winning side, that your work matters. It counts. All of us combined are a social force, a cultural force that has put the circumcisers on the defensive and on the run. And we will be taking care of this problem as soon as humanly possible. The American people are decent people, and they reject circumcision when they know what it is. Thank you, friends. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for caring. Thank you for your compassion. And thank you for the baby boys that you are saving, and the men they become, and all the people who will love them in relationships and in their lives. We will be a normal nation again. Thank you.